Awesome, there we go. Welcome everyone to the Educator drop-in session for this year's Future City Experience. My name's Rebecca White. I am here with Engineers of Tomorrow. And again, thank you so much for giving up some of your very valuable, precious time in the day to connect with us. My goal for this session is really just to help you make sure that you have all the information that you need so that you feel comfortable, confident, ready, prepared for the Future City Experience. However, I'm here to also assure you that you really can't do anything wrong here. We've tried to set this program up in a way that is very flexible and adaptable for you and for your students. And I'm going to just jump ahead to the next slide. I have multiple screens going here, so apologies for looking like I'm staring at the ceiling. So just wanted to let you know we're here to help you. We have a wonderful support team. We have Kim Buffard, who is supporting us from Engineers Canada. For those who aren't aware, Engineers Canada is a national organization that is made up of all the provincial regulators for engineering across Canada. And their primary objective is to just provide support and help raise awareness about, in this case, raise awareness about engineering. Myself, as I said, Rebecca White from Engineers of Tomorrow, and I am your primary contact person for the program. And then my very esteemed colleague, Sarah Rishu, who is helping out on the mentor side of things, connecting with all the engineers, and we will eventually bring all of you together. Before we jump in, I wanted to take a second to just give you a little bit of the context or background around the Future City Experience. This program is actually an abbreviated version of the Future City Competition. And the Future City Competition is a program that runs in the US by a wonderful organization called Discover E, like Discover with a capital E at the end. We have taken bits and pieces of that program and adapted them in a way that we think will fit in with the goals that we want to achieve and the goals that you hopefully have for your students in your classrooms as well. And again, just try to make it very adaptable and flexible so that everyone can have the best possible experience with this program. I also wanted to let you know that you are part of something big. So the Future City Experience, this is now our third year running this version of the program. We started in 2021 with, I think we had about 60 classes participate the first year. I just had a look at our numbers today, and we have 150 schools that are joining us this year from across Canada. So kind of neat to think that you and your students are participating in something on a national scale with others from different provinces all across the country. So let's get into the kind of nuts and bolts of this program. What does the Future City Experience look like in the classroom? Well, basically, one of the things we've done is tried to help bring the program to life for you and for your students by connecting you, the educator, with an engineer. So you can bring that kind of experiential learning into the classroom, and then together creating essentially a custom design challenge for the students. So the Future City Experience at its core really is just a design challenge. The students have to imagine, design, and build a model of a city 100 years in the future. So as you can imagine, and you start to think about, well, what makes up a city? Well, that's a pretty complex challenge, right? You have everything from healthcare, education, wastewater, transportation, infrastructure, you name it, right? You really can go into a lot of different directions with this particular design challenge. And then the fact that it's 100 years in the future, well, that means we get to really be creative and think about what kind of technologies are going to exist. What is a city going to look like 100 years from now? What are the technologies that we are seeing today, and how can we kind of project what those might look like in the future? And then attached onto that design challenge is a theme. So each year we do a different theme. Last year our theme was living on the moon. So as you can imagine, lots of fun challenges associated with figuring out how to create a city with no gravity and no atmosphere. This year we are back on Earth, so we're very happy about that. And the theme for this year's challenge is waste-free future. So thinking about concepts like sustainability and circular economy. So things that are very relevant and kind of top of mind for a lot of us. So the design challenge, as I mentioned, at its core, the future city experience. So with this design challenge, as I mentioned, they're going to imagine, design, and then build a model of this city. When it comes to the building of the model, there is lots of flexibility there. So you can, and what we've seen historically is have students bring in like egg cartons and yogurt containers and cardboard boxes and build their cities in that way, kind of paint them and build these really wonderful representations of their designs. We're also okay if you want to do, or your students want to do the build as a virtual build. So if you have access to maybe Minecraft in your school board, or Tinkercad is another good one, Roblox, programs like that, they can build their designs in that virtual space as well. In addition, the structure of how you decide to kind of set this up in your classroom is also flexible. So traditionally, what we would see is, if you say you have a class of 25, 30 students, you might break them up into smaller groups of 3, 4, 5 kids, and then each smaller group is building a city model. And that works really well, but you might have some challenges with that. For example, classroom space. If they're all doing a physical build, and like each one of their cities is like, I don't know, 1 or 2 meters by 1 or 2 meters, you can very easily imagine that you would have a challenge and maybe run out of space. So another option is to, again, break the students up into smaller groups, but instead do one city for your entire class and have each one of the smaller subgroups working on a segment of the city. So maybe one group's working on transportation, and one group is working on residential, one group might be working on industrial areas, that sort of thing. And I can go into a little bit more detail and give you some ideas and suggestions on how you might want to break them up as we go through some of the resources. So how does this work? So in terms of kind of what's coming up, what's coming through the pipeline at the moment. So hopefully everybody received the email from me, I think this morning or today at some point, with information about the kickoff event that's happening on February 1st. If you're able to attend that with your class, I highly recommend it. It's a great way to build excitement and get lots of wonderful information about this particular design challenge theme. So we've brought in subject matter experts around concepts like circular economy. Some of them work for different cities or different kind of parts of the infrastructure that you would see to make up a city. And so you and your students will have the chance to do a live Q&A with these subject matter experts. And so it's a great way to kind of get the wheels turning as you launch this in your classroom. So that's happening on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time is when we're having the English event. There is also a French version of the kickoff as well. That one is happening at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. However, if for some reason you are unable to, it doesn't work with your class schedule or whatever, something comes up, maybe it's a snow day where you are, I don't know, not to worry. We are going to be recording it, so you will be able to watch the recording with your class or watch bits and pieces of it, kind of break it up if you want to. It's going to be we're targeting it for it to be about an hour. And to watch the replay, you'll just visit the same link where you'll watch the live stream. So it's basically just a YouTube live stream, and to submit questions, we have a link where you'll be able to submit questions. I will also say, if by some chance we're unable to answer all the questions that come in, because we do have so many students participating this year, what we have done in previous years is we do have a record of all those questions. So we'll do our best to kind of consolidate them and send you like a PDF with sort of the FAQs that have come out of that event. Following that, the next big thing is the week of February 6th. That's when we will be sending you the Meet Your Mentor emails. So expect to get an email from us connecting you with your engineer or your class's engineer mentor. And so from there, we essentially leave it up to you and the mentor to schedule out your the classroom visits, their support visits, and we have communicated to the mentors that they are expected to visit with your class 3 times throughout the duration of the program. So it works out nicely because the program's about 3 months. So if they do at least kind of 1 visit per month is a nice way to do it. However, again, that is totally flexible and up to you how you want to manage it. But our recommendation is 1 visit in February, 1 visit in March, 1 visit in April. The mentors are really, really excited to get started with sharing their passion about engineering and their expertise with all of your students. But I can tell you that they're also nervous, which is kind of funny. Because not all of them are used to talking to kids. This is something, if they've been in the working world for a while, they're used to communicating with their peers or leadership team or writing reports and emails. So please do your best to sort of make sure they feel welcome and comfortable. We've also told them to be open to feedback, so don't hesitate to give them feedback, maybe give them some suggestions on good ways to connect with your students. Obviously, you know them best. If there's some insights you can provide them in advance of their visits, I know they would appreciate that. What I was going to say one other thing, and I can't remember what it was, but that they're really, really excited to get started and meet everybody. And then, so between February and April, you'll be working away on coming up with the city designs and turning them into reality by building models or bringing it to life on a computer screen, and visiting with your mentors. Working towards a goal of coming to the showcase event that we have in May. So May the 3rd is the target date for submitting the presentation to us with the all the information about the city. And I'll show you an example. We have a template for that you can use as a starting point. Really, the main reason we ask for that presentation about a week prior to the showcase itself is because we like to use those presentations to collect images of the cities and create galleries that so that all the students can see each other's designs and some of the other ideas, and kind of facilitate some sharing and maybe inspiration in that way. If your class doesn't finish their city in time, it's okay. You can still attend the showcase. I had not a lot. I had a few panicked teachers contacting me last year just before the showcase, concerned that their students weren't finished and they wouldn't be able to attend, but it's okay. The main reason it's okay is because it's not a competition. They're attending the showcase to present their city, however much of their city they have done, to a panel of engineers. The engineers will then ask them some questions about why they've designed their city the way they have, and maybe some of their ideas. And then the engineers will do a very, very short deliberation and decide if the student's design is worthy of receiving an engineering stamp, which is something that only licensed engineers can do, is stamp designs to be able to approve them as safe for the general public. So if they don't complete their full city model, that's okay. That's, we get it. This is real life. Come to the showcase anyways and present what you have. The engineers can give them maybe some feedback and provide guidance on where to go, direction from there. The one limitation, unfortunately, that we do have, just based on our resources, is that we can only support one presentation per class. So if you did decide to set up this design challenge where you have multiple student groups, each working on full city builds, you will have to make a decision which one of those cities is going to be the one that represents your class and is presented at the showcase. We leave that up to you, how to make that decision. If you want to have the students vote internally in your class, if you want to involve your engineer mentors maybe in some way, totally up to you how you make that decision. If you decide to only do one city model for your entire class and each group is working on a segment of it, that does work out quite nicely for the showcase, because then you will have a few students then will be able to present that, that city that's a representation of that entire class. So I just mentioned that for your consideration. Do what's best for you and your students. The other students, if it is just one group that ends up presenting, we have other parts of the showcase set up to try and involve everyone in your class so that they will feel included and be able to take something away from it. So that's how that's all working. And as I said, that's happening May 10th. If you are participating in the French version of the showcase or of the program, that showcase is happening on May the 11th. Also, just a heads up that we do heavily rely on email communications, primarily coming from myself. But once we connect you with your engineer mentor, they will have their own personal email address. Sometimes they use their work email address. Sometimes they use like a personal Gmail address. So please just be sure to keep that in mind. Check. Every board has sort of different firewalls set up, so just check junk folders and spam folders, and make sure you have things marked as safe. And absolutely, if there's been a gap in communication, please let us know as soon as possible so that we can try and get it resolved. I saw a question come up about where the showcase is taking place, and yes, it is virtual. So we have so because we have classes participating from across the country. We are doing it virtually. We partner with Ontario Tech University. They do an amazing job of setting that up in a way that's really fun. Last year they had an activity on artificial intelligence. They had one, they did like a Kahoot quiz. And there was another one, a Tinkercad, interactive Tinkercad demo, in addition to also the presentations. So they do a really wonderful job. So a couple of FAQs. Are visits done in person or virtual? So when this program was designed initially, it was designed when we weren't physically allowed to be in schools. So our sort of primary or default mode is to set things up as virtual. However, when we do the matching the classes with the mentors, we do try to prioritize proximity so that if the mentor is close enough to your school and you want them to come in person and they're okay with that, then by all means, that is absolutely fine with us. And the other reason we prioritize proximity is so that at least you maybe have geography in common, right? They can maybe look into some things that are happening in your own community that maybe would be good things to reflect on as your students are designing cities themselves. What do mentors talk about with the students? So our primary goal with this program is to simply raise awareness about engineering. So we highly encourage our mentors to take a human first approach when they're going to be talking to your students. So the first visit, they're going to be introducing themselves, right? We want the students to start to develop a relationship with them and feel a sense of connection. So we've asked them to share information about sort of their path and maybe some challenges that they had and what do they do as an engineer, just to give the students some perspective. And definitely they'll be kind of encouraging them, maybe asking them some questions, planting some seeds about some of the design choices for this particular challenge. Another thing we encourage the mentors to talk to the students about is the engineering design process. So if you are joining us from Ontario, we know that was something that was newly added to the science curriculum this year. So this is a wonderful opportunity to talk about how engineers use the engineering design process to, when they're dealing with complex challenges, and, iterate on the design choices that they're making, and go through that process, because it covers all different disciplines. Doesn't really matter what kind of an engineer you are or what problem you're working on. It's really transferable in that way. They can also help them prepare for the showcase. So if you want to make sure, maybe you plan a visit later in April, and give your students a chance to do a practice presentation possibly. They can ask the students some of the questions that might come up at the showcase, just to help them feel confident and ready to present to a panel of engineers. Communication with your mentor, and what if you're having any challenges with that? As I mentioned, the initial communications will be done by email, and if you're not, for whatever reason, there's it shouldn't happen, hopefully, but please just let us know so that we can intervene. And then if you prefer a different type of communication, if you prefer texts or WhatsApp or whatever you like to use, just sort that out with your mentor as you're meeting them the first time, sort of exchanging emails the first time, so that you keep those lines of communication open. That's really going to make everyone's experience a lot more smooth if you sort out the communication stuff right in the beginning. What if the engineer has trouble connecting with the students? As I mentioned, a lot of them are nervous. So hopefully they get some of those nerves out after their first visit, and they are very passionate and excited. But you are more than welcome to give them some feedback. It's helpful if you can prep the students. So maybe you could ask your mentor to send you a bit of information about themselves, maybe some pictures or just a bit of kind of a bio that they have, so you can start to prep the students that there's this, this special guest we have coming. As you're working through the design challenges, if you know your students are going to have maybe some more technical questions for your mentor, I'm sure they would appreciate if you could send them those questions in advance, if at all possible. They may want to do their own homework so that they can come to the visits feeling prepared. What if something changes? I change grades or schools or roles. We know that things can happen unexpectedly. We expect that this is the exception, of course, but again, if possible, we ask that you just try and communicate that with us so that we can try and make that seamless for the students. If we're possibly able to connect the mentor with someone that's taking over for you, or just whatever the situation is, we can do our best if we have that information. What resources are provided? So at the end of the slides I have here, I'll take a second and go through and show you what resources we do have available. We have everything from student handouts to the template of the presentation I mentioned, to some recommended sites you can go to find information about circular economy and sustainability and that sort of thing. So what's next? It's a couple days away now. The kickoff event is happening on February the 1st. If you go to the link that I sent out today, that'll take you to the website where you're going to find the live stream. And on that site, you'll also find the bios of the panelists and the moderator. So if you wanted to start looking at that and maybe sharing some of that information with your students so they can and kind of build up the excitement for them. So that's what's coming up next. And as I mentioned, it will be recorded, so you'll have access to that just in case you're not able to watch it with your class. Or I had someone mention they're doing this with multiple classes, so they can't all be attending at the same time. So be able to make that work for whatever your situation is. And then last little plug or request, I guess, from our perspective, we do love to get a window into the classroom whenever possible. So if you are taking pictures of what your students are doing throughout the process of this design challenge, maybe when your mentors visit or just as your students are working on their design challenges, we would love it if you could tag us so that we can retweet or share whatever those stories with our community. Awesome. So that's kind of the main points that I wanted to cover, but I'm definitely here to answer any questions that any of you might have. I'm going to just peek at the chat to see if I missed anything. So you're welcome to put your questions into the chat. Or if you feel comfortable, we don't have a ton of people here, so if you feel comfortable, you can unmute yourself and ask your question as well. So we talked about the time of the kickoff event on Wednesday is 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's for the English event. The showcase is taking place virtually. Can you post a sample model from previous years? Yes, I will actually show you where you can see the gallery from last year, just to get some sources of inspiration. There's also a link to some of the other ones as well. I'll show you where that is. Any other questions? You're free to ask questions at any time, but maybe what I'll do is jump over and show you some of the resources.